Hi everyone, this is Peggy Mercer's YouTube and welcome to the show Writing for Love and Maybe Money. And we start that back talking about poetry. Now I've been saying on some of the Trump videos that I would do a poetry video and I would do it shortly. Well, this is kind of the trailer into the poetry lessons that you are going to get right here. I want to be able to teach aspiring poets or poets who consider that they're mature poets but have really never been published, only printed on demand maybe. And I want to teach you how to write poetry and get it published. And I want you to let me know here in the comments section if you're learning, if you're growing, if you're maturing as a poet, and certainly if you are able to get some of your poetry published by something I'm saying to you or somehow how I'm doing this. And this won't be a long video because the mega videos will start about the plan is to start Tuesday. I have got a lot of notes that I'm making. I am going to read you some great poetry. I am going to talk to you about how all these people wrote poetry. I think that one could say I am a best-selling author, and I am an Amazon award-winning author, and I've won Georgia Author of the Year, and I've won Georgia Independent Author of the Year with the Independent Group also, and I've won awards in Texas, and I've won awards in Kentucky, and I've been a keynote speaker in many conferences, and I've taught poetry classes. And so I do have a long list of award-winning poems behind me. I was at one time a member of the Georgia State Poetry Society, and I did win some awards in that, and my poetry has been published many times in various poetry digests. I have been published in anthologies. I've been published in newspapers and magazines, and I've been paid, and which is wonderful. And I want to just not talk about poetry, but I want to teach you how you can become a best-selling poet and not just somebody writing stuff. One of the first things I want to talk about is what is poetry and how do you prepare to write poetry. The first thing that I want you to do is I want you to, of course, get a notebook. I've told so many of my students, get a notebook. You are going to keep a journal or a diary of what you consider your creative thoughts or your stunning thoughts or your stunning places that you visit. And so what you want to do is you want to get that journal and you want to begin to write down and jot down your thoughts in that journal. And of course somebody's knocking on my door, and that's the way it always goes. And so we'll get to them in just a minute. But right now I'm talking about how you can keep up with your thoughts that you think you're going to turn into poetry. I have written thoughts down walking down the streets of New York on a piece of a napkin I just got from a restaurant. I've written my poetry ideas down on the back of my hand, on the back of my leg, walking down the beach. I've written my thoughts down. A lot of people do carry around micro or mini cassette recorders, and I do that also. I also will record my thoughts into my clipboard via my telephone or my iPad or whatever. if you don't write these thoughts down, if you wake up in the middle of the night and you say, oh my goodness, what a wonderful poem this is, and you don't write that down, you will forget it. It will slip away like pennies being tossed into a wishing well, and you will never get it back. So just the other day, John Richards and I were chatting about this absolutely wonderful idea, and he and I are both songwriters, and of course he's a wonderful jazz musician, and we were talking about wonderful ideas, and there's one of my cats come to visit, and hello there, and let's get down with you. And this is my little ugly Goldilocks, and she gets a lot of love and all the food she can eat here. And one thing I do want to say is write your thoughts down. John said to me, oh, what a wonderful song that would make, what you just said. And he said, write that down. And I said, well, I'll write it down later. And he said, no, write it down now, because you know that you'll forget it if you don't write it down. And so here you go. Write your thoughts down. Get a notebook, go to Walmart or somewhere and get a good thick notebook and begin to write your thoughts down about your poems that you are planning to write now. Don't worry about anything else but jotting down the idea that you want to develop into poetry. Now, one of the first things I want to say about poetry is what not to do. Don't write gross poetry. Don't write vulgar. Don't use vulgar words. Don't talk about going to the bathroom and stuff like that. Who wants to read that? It's crazy. You know, some people are codependent on failure. Some aspiring poets don't really want to succeed because they're scared to death of it. They're afraid of becoming a great poet because they're afraid of putting their poetry out there. They're afraid that people won't like it, and so they write for what I call shock and awe, and they write horrible poetry, and nobody will publish it, and they have to pay somebody to set it up and print it, and these people just brag on them because they want their money. And so this particular person, and I know a bunch of people like this, they write all this trash and call it poetry, but they will never get published, and they will definitely never become a great American best-selling poet. And that's what I want for you. I want us to keep a notebook then, and we're going to learn in this video that I'm about to put out to you what makes a great poem, and why some people are award-winning poets, and why some people cause the reader or the listener to think. I was very honored as a young aspiring poet to be able to give poetry readings at the very famous Cloister Hotel on Sea Island, Georgia, with the master poet of Georgia, and I was able to evoke feelings and the poem, wordplay, loving words, writing and putting poetry together is such a wonderful, fun art. It can be life-changing. It can be a piece of art that the viewer or the listener will later come and tell you, this changed my life, it changed my attitude, and there is no greater thrill in my life that I've ever had than anybody telling me that. You all do know to mention this, and then we're going to do the poetry video on Tuesday. I have got a few charts, and you know all my stuff is homemade, but I can tell you how to write a great book of poetry, and this may be your project for 2025, and I'm hoping that it will be. If you want to become a great writer, write poetry. I've written poetry since I was a little bitty girl. I call it poetry. There on those big wide boards, that wide, in the old farmhouse where we lived. I have always been fascinated by people and places, especially the places where I grew up, down on the Satilla River and out in the Satilla community, and all the farm animals and all the interesting people that I grew up around. I have always found people fascinating. I've always found places fascinating. You have a lot to write about. You don't have to write trash. You don't have to write about dogs pooping in the yard. Please, please spare me this, okay? This is why your poetry won't sell. You can't give it away. I know for a fact that people give their poetry books away, and the poetry is so bad that when people walk off, they laugh and throw it in the garbage can. Do you want that for your poetry? No. Well, forget writing the trash. Forget writing nasty, dirty, shocking all poetry, because let me tell you something. We're entering another Trump era, and I think that the American people have spoken with what they want and need in their lives, with what they want and need in their finances, with what they want and what they need in their art. You know what they want? They want something valuable. They want something moral. They want something they can hang their hat on and say, yes, that's how I feel. And yes, if you write poetry like I'm going to help you learn to write poetry now, we must remember that poetry is going to have some rhythm, and it's going to have some beauty, and it's going to be strong. I told a group that I was the keynote speaker at the Kentucky Writing Conference in 2015 in Louisville, Kentucky, and the Bluegrass Writing Conference. And the first thing I said was, there have been whole societies that did not have the will, but there has never been, never, a society that did not have poetry and songs and things written on the cave walls. There's never been a group of people in the world that didn't have some rhythm and some and some stomping of the feet and so on and so forth. I saw a play once called Stomp in Jacksonville, Florida. That was brought down from New York, and the people made all this music and rhythm with brooms and tin cans and rocks and their own feet. See, you don't need fancy computer equipment. You don't need a fancy suit to wear. You don't need a hat and gloves. You don't need to look a certain way. You don't need to act a certain way. You don't need to have a circle of friends or a circle of friends as big as a dot to become a successful best-selling poet. Now, the poetry video is coming on Tuesday. You stay with me right now. You hop over there and click like on this introductory video to the poetry lessons that are going to change your poetry writing life. And I do plan to do another video about current events such as the drones and all that kind of stuff in a few days also. So subscribe to the YouTube. Get ready for a year of great writing information, how to, here on Peggy Mercer YouTube, Writing for Love and Maybe Money. Bye-bye, over and out now.